All right, welcome to Peace of Mind Radio Podcast. I am Brian Ramsey along with Eric Douglas. What's going on?
Hey, how you doing, Brian?
I'm all right for a Monday. Hey, so today's going to be pretty interesting. This conversation comes from a meeting that we had, that I had last week, and it comes up all the time. And it's shocking, actually. Our producer over here, we just had this conversation right before we shot this, and we were like, what comes up all the time, or what have we been hearing? Especially in this, this is a crazy pandemic, so for those of you that are maybe watching this in replay, it is, the last week of February of 2021.
We're celebrating the 1-year anniversary of 2 weeks to flatten the curve. That's exactly where we're at, actually.
Let's see, it's the 1-year anniversary to only having to wear your mask for 2 weeks. That's what we were talking about.
There you go.
We were talking about this at lacrosse. We were talking to some guys, and we're like, what about this? And in fact, there was the reason it came up is because we literally had just read an article, or I just read an article that said that some guy from the CDC came out and said that masks are going to be mandated beyond 2022. It's like, how can that guy predict it when we don't even know what's going to happen 6 months from now? But anyway, that's a totally different podcast, by the way. Anyway, so one of the things we were talking about prior to the recording this was, what are some of the things that we're seeing from clients, hearing from clients that that we thought we would do a show on, so somebody might find interesting, or something that you might do in your financial life that might better your situation. And without a doubt, one thing that came up was that we're seeing a lot of, and Eric, you and I were talking about this, we're seeing a lot of clients that are almost kind of like frozen, right? They're almost kind of paralyzed, if you will, of making financial decisions or doing anything financially. And what do they all say?
Wait till the market to come back.
Yeah, wait for things to get over, and then I'm going to make a move.
Well, and that's really that's been the case for, once again, 1 year to, since 2 weeks to flatten the curve. But I mean, for really the entire past year, that's been just something I've seen constantly with clients, is they don't know what to do. They've seen the market go way down. They've seen it come all the way back up. Now what people were frozen when the market was at the bottom because they were scared, they didn't know what to do. Well, now we're seeing a lot of it now that the market's hitting all-time highs again, because they're waiting for the correction to come, which inevitably there will be a correction. There's always a correction.
Yeah.
But you just have to give it enough time in between to be able to withstand natural corrections that occur in the market. But, outside of that, I think the other thing that's happened in the past year is, and this is, where we're going, there's been a greater emphasis, I think, on estate planning. And so that's been a bigger topic of conversation with some of the folks that we've had, some of the clients that we've had in our office here recently is, what do we need to be doing? Because, you see what's happening in the news. Obviously, unfortunately, a lot of people have, lost their lives because of COVID, and it's a very, very sad thing. So we want to make sure we're being proactive and having conversations about making sure your affairs are in order well ahead of time before you're having to think about those things, when the time comes. Yeah,
it's interesting. One of the things that we, as in this business, and, you have new clients that come in and you're talking about, how they, what happened in their financial life, what were they doing, what were they thinking. And it's amazing is we have a tendency when things are okay, we have a tendency to not be proactive at certain things. When we're only proactive when a tragedy strikes, and you're like, oh my gosh, I got to go out and redo this. I got to, rebalance my portfolio. Well, you should be doing that anyway. And that's kind of the challenge. But I've got a piece, I think it's still in one of our meeting rooms. Anyway, I'm not sure. By the way, if you want this piece, send us an email and I'll send it to you, because I know I have electronically. But it's basically a roadmap over the last 50 years. And it's a Time magazine cover article. We've all seen it. Mm-hmm. I can't remember who. Well, now I know who does it, but it's a mutual fund company, which Lord knows I can't say it, because then I'd be promoting it, and we'd never get this podcast approved. So I'm not going to do that. However, if you want it, send us an email. It's info@FWP Partners. It'll be in the description below this video. So just email us and say, hey, I want a copy of the Time magazine article, and we'll send it to you. But what this thing does, or what this article, it's like a trifold. Mm-hmm. But it's not like that when you get it in electronic form, obviously. But what it does is it shows you that if you look at Time magazine cover, pretty much there's something going on all the time. and the markets have been pretty resilient. That's essentially what this was, right?
All the scary things that have happened throughout
Yeah.
the entirety of American history that have been meant certain doom and gloom for
Yep.
the American stock market, and
Yeah.
the life as we know it is officially over, and yet it keeps plugging along, and we're
look,
still here.
Absolutely, and COVID's going to be no different, right?
Yep.
I mean, the history books are going to say this is exactly what it is, but at the end of the day, we're going to see, the markets at all-time highs 5 years from now, which is going to be much higher than it is now. There's going to be another tragedy, and sure enough, this market's going to be resilient to get through it. However, with all that being said, one of the points we're trying to make today is that we have seen newer clients that have come to us over this past year have all pretty much said the same thing. Well, I know I need to do this. I know I need to do that, but I'm going to wait until this is over to do something. We've heard that way too much.
And then when this is over, there's going to be some other reason why they can't do it.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, sure. Yeah. It's anyway, I won't go there. I was going to go down a rabbit hole, which our producer does not want me to do, and I totally get it. All right, so here's one topic that's come up, and Eric mentioned it, and that is that folks have a tendency to delay looking at their estate documents, and it's looking at for updates or even doing estate documents to begin with. It's only when you have a tragedy like this, or they lose somebody, a loved one, or something like that, that you go, wow, I should go back and look at my will to make sure it's updated, or I should go back and make sure all my estate documents are updated. That's not the conversation of today. Yes, should you go back and do that? 100% you should. That's not the exact conversation we're having. We're talking about a very specific estate planning technique that we've had a couple of conversations with over the last week, that I had a client come in to say, well, this is how I have this set up. And I'm like, no, that's not how we do it. And she's like, oh, I didn't know I should set things up that way. So what we're talking about is, that's not it, by the way. Our producer will edit that out, I promise. Or he may leave it in there. All right, so what we're talking about today is checking and savings accounts, right? When it comes to estate planning or estate documents, we talk about asset titling, beneficiaries. Those are pretty easy. A lot of times, checking and saving accounts are ignored, or they don't look at those account types because they're more focused about IRAs and life insurance policies and that sort of thing.
Well, people think on a macro level, right? And they don't necessarily think on a micro level about the smaller accounts, or really the most accessible accounts that they have, which are their obviously checking and savings accounts that they have just sitting at their local bank. And really, in a time of need, when something does happen or someone passes away, what's the first thing a lot of times that you need access to is you need cash, and you need quick cash.
Yeah.
And so how is it that we want to structure those assets to make sure that they're passed on in a timely manner to the people that they need to go to be able to cover immediate necessary expenses?
Yeah. So one of the most common mistakes that we see is that as parents get older, they will have a tendency to add their children to their checking accounts. That's what we're talking about, is adding kids to a checking account.
Far more common than I would have ever thought before.
Oh, it's unbelievable. Mm-hmm. We see it all the time. So why, Eric, why would somebody do that? You're 70 years old and you go, hey, I got, one of my kids lives in California, another one lives in Chicago, the other one lives here. So I'm going to put the one that lives here, I'm going to put them on my checking account.
Well, the thinking goes, like I was just saying, you want somebody to be able to access your money in the event of your death. And you want them to be able to access it quickly. And in thinking, or the thinking would go that the easiest way to do that is if they are on the account themselves, they would have immediate access to it. Generally speaking, that's going to be a bad idea, and there's other ways to accomplish that goal without having them have access or allowing them access to your money while you're still alive. The easiest example is, we always talk about the spendthrift kid, right? Or somebody with the gambling or the drug addiction. And that's obviously a very extreme example, but unfortunately we've seen it enough times.
It's common.
It's a real example. The reason people use those examples is, we talk about those things is because they happen, unfortunately. Sure. And so when you're allowing someone access, or they're an owner on your account, they have full access to it just like you do. You give me access to your checking account, I can go write a check the exact same way you can. If I want to go buy some extra furniture for my patio, guess what I have available at my disposal if, I don't have it somewhere else.
Yeah, and by the way, if you do have and we're going to go down several different topics here on this category. But if, for example, you have your child on your checking account, savings account, and that child goes into the bank and says, I want to withdraw money. The bank cannot stop that, by the way, because they're an owner. So they can't stop it. A lot of people think, oh, well, banks won't let that happen. No, that's not the case. It's obviously not the case. But so just to kind of narrow it down, why a parent would name a child on their checking is really what I find is kind of two reasons. Number one, they put them on there for probate avoidance, meaning I pass away. I just don't want my kids. I'm trying to simplify things, just trying to get my checking and savings passed to my kids. The easiest way to do it is to add them onto the account as a joint owner. And when I pass away, it automatically becomes theirs. They can, withdraw the money and pass it out to their siblings, which they're not required to do, by the way. So if they only put one child on there, they're not required to give the other money to their sibling. Now, you hope they would, but they're not required to. But number two, they do it in case of incapacity. I become incapacitated. I'm not dead yet, so the money doesn't pass by the beneficiaries, but I need somebody to continue to write the bills and pay the bills and that sort of thing, or write the checks and pay the bills. So I'm going to put them on there just to have access to the money. So those are really the two main reasons why we see folks put kids on their checking account. Now, there's some inherent risk in that. We talked about that. If you have a child that maybe is not very good money-wise, that could be an issue, right? They could go in and withdraw assets, that kind of thing. The other issue is, let's say you have a kid that is really good with money. They're gonna protect it. They're not gonna go in and drain your account or anything like that. That's what everybody says. Oh, my kid would never do that. That's awesome. However, if that child, or if they're married and their spouse goes out and does something stupid and has creditors coming after them, which Lord knows we know that happens, guess whose assets are available to that creditor? Your checking account.
Absolutely.
Because they're on there as an owner. So again, there's just more risk than is necessary, because you can have two things done to your checking and savings accounts, which is the right way to do it, and that's what we're going to talk about, that avoids all that. Avoids your kids from going in and taking money out of your account unauthorized. It also avoids if your child or their spouse or whatever does something and there's creditors coming after them, it protects your assets. So that's what we're going to walk through right now to kind of finish out this topic. So number one, Eric, I'll let you run with it, but I'll ask the questions. So let's tackle disability or incapacitation first. Pretty simple. So I'm a single parent. Right, I'm older. In fact, I'm a single parent. I'm even younger, and I have all this set up. But I become incapacitated. I'm not dead, so there's no transfer of the money. I'm still alive. What can I put in place that would allow somebody to step into my role financially and act on my behalf?
A well-established estate plan will include several different things. Of course, it'll include the very basic living will, a living will, but it'll also include a power of attorney as well. Yep. Power of attorney is who is going to have the ability to make decisions on your behalf if and when the event occurs where you become incapacitated for whatever that reason might be. So if there is a POA on you, if you hold the POA and someone has that ability, they will be able to access those accounts while you are still alive, while you are incapacitated, without technically being the owner of the accounts themselves. So if they need to access your checking account, your savings, for whatever reason that they need to access that money quickly, they will have the ability to do that. If you have established an estate plan well in advance, once again, you do these things when there's not a 5-alarm fire, when you want to be proactive. But if you got an estate plan done well ahead of time and you've got a POA set up, power of attorney, that will allow them full access to all of your funds.
Yeah, and so I get this question. Okay, I've got a POA, or I'm gonna have a POA set up, and I'm gonna have my child as POA. Can they go in and act on my behalf while I'm still in full mental capacity? And the answer is no. Could you have that provision written in there? You probably could. We don't typically do that. They have what they call springing powers, meaning they come into play once you become incapacitated. And that person has to have some documentation that they would supply that shows that you are in fact incapacitated. So in other words, my youngest son, well, I don't know that it'll be my POA. Of course, he's too young for me to even to watch this, but he's my wild child, and I'm not sure that I would want him to be POA because if that were capable, he were capable to get inside my checking account, he for sure would, because he would buy every skin known to man in Fortnite if he had the ability to do that. So I for sure would make sure that it had the springing power. Not I joke around about it, but there is a provision in your power of attorney that says that in the event that you become incapacitated, it's the only time that comes into play. And then it is only good until you pass away. And once you pass away, it all goes away. The power of attorney goes away. So, so to your point, if you are incapacitated, a power of attorney is what gives that person the ability to act on your behalf.
Durable power of attorney, absolutely. And once again, as you just said, it dissolves upon the death of the owner of the power of attorney. So once that person passes away, then everything goes either to their estate or to the trust or whatever is directed in their will.
Yep. Or good transition. Checking and savings accounts.
Checking and savings.
All right, that's what we're dealing with now. So
yeah,
we dealt with incapacitation. Now let's deal with death. I pass away, and obviously that's a reason why I put my kids on my checking account, is because I want to avoid probate. I just want it to be easier for my kids or my executor. So now, what can I do to my checking and savings accounts that will help avoid probate?
This is far less complicated than coming up with a full estate plan. All you need to do is go into your local bank and tell them that you want to put what's called a TOD, a transfer on death, or some banks may call it a POD, a payable on death. All you need to do is tell them you want to add a TOD or a POD on your account, and what happens is that money upon your death will immediately transfer to whoever you label the beneficiary as. Normally, in this case, we're talking about your kids. So if you go in and say, I want Junior to be, I want this account to transfer on my death to Junior, immediately it will avoid probate. It will go straight to him. The immediate impact is that for things like funeral expenses and all those, various things, paying off creditors or whatever the case may be, Junior has money immediately available to him that he did not have access to while you were still alive. But now that you've passed away, he has full access to it. It's transferred to him. He is now the owner of the account, and you didn't have to, have him be an account owner while you were still alive.
Yeah. And that's really the big thing that we wanted to get across today is just don't wait to do this planning. Do it now. I mean, what a better way to, and as a matter of fact, Mr. Producer, can you make a note of that we should do a series on things that you should be doing during a pandemic as opposed to waiting until afterwards? That'd actually be a pretty good one, I think. Anyway, we may do that. Actually, we probably had that already planned. But anyway, that's a whole different story. No, don't wait until things come back. Don't wait until the market comes back. Don't wait until we can no longer wear a mask. I mean, those are the type things that we hear all the time. Well, I'm just going to wait. Yeah, I need this to happen before, I'll go in front of an attorney to get my estate documents done. Don't do that. Do it now so that when we can go maskless or when we can get on an airplane and travel without fear, you don't have to worry about going to see the attorney and getting your estate documents done. They're already done, or anything else for that matter. But so don't put it off. If you want to come see us, we're happy to walk you through the whole estate planning process. You can call us. The phone number will be below in the description. You can email us and ask us questions. If you want that Time Magazine piece, just send us an email. Be happy to drop that to you, an email. But here, the conclusion to this podcast is pretty simple, and that is, don't put your kids on your checking account. Clear, and I mean, it's just as simple as that, right? There's just too much risk. There's a very clear path that you can take, and the proper way to do things is to have a power of attorney established for whomever you want to name that will allow that person to act on your behalf in the event of an incapacitation, and then put beneficiaries on your accounts. Super simple and easy. Avoids probate, and so you can accomplish both things by just properly doing your planning and adding a POD or TOD, I think is what you called them, and making sure you have a power of attorney. So with that being said, if you want to come and meet us or you want to come sit down and talk about your estate plan, call us. The number, again, will be in the description below. I don't know, Mr. Producer's yelling at me about something. Say it. Oh, our phone number, 502-200-5210. It's also in the description right below here. But I'm going to let...
We are far better financial planners than we are TV hosts and podcast hosts, right?
Yeah, but this is how we are.
It is
right. So if you come see us, this is how we're going to act. So you should
at least have some fun with it, right?
We're just not that. We're not that stuffy group, right? I mean, I actually think that's why a lot of clients do business with us, because we are a little bit more laid back. We're not this whole stuffy suit wearing, come into big, long, drawn out oak conference room table. That's just not how we roll around here. So we like to have a lot of fun, and we want clients to have fun, and we want fun clients. So anyway, that's it. I'll pass it over to Eric. He'll sign us off, and just make sure you tune into next week, or actually over the next couple of weeks, because I think we are going to do a series on things that you should be doing during a pandemic, so that when you come out of a pandemic, you're ready to go.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So we appreciate you listening. Make sure you listen, subscribe, rate, and review on your favorite podcast subscriber, favorite podcast platform. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you click that red button. And if you can leave a review there or give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, we'd greatly appreciate it. Thanks for listening. The information given herein is taken from sources at IFP Advisors, LLC, doing business as Independent Financial Partners, IFP, IFP Securities, doing business as IFP, and its advisors believed to be reliable, but it is not guaranteed by us as to accuracy or completeness. This is for informational purposes only, and in no event should be construed as an offer to sell or solicitation of an offer to buy any securities or products. Please consult your tax and/or legal advisor before implementing any tax and/or legal-related strategies mentioned in this publication, as IFP does not provide tax and/or legal advice. Opinions expressed are subject to change without notice and do not take into account the particular investment objectives, financial situation, or needs of individual investors. This report may not be reproduced, distributed, or published by any person for any purpose without IFP's express prior written consent. Securities offered through IFP Securities, LLC, doing business as Independent Financial Partners, IFP, member of FINRA and SIPC. Investment advice offered through IFP Advisors, doing business as IFP, a registered investment advisor. IFP and Family Wealth Planning Partners are not affiliated. The information given herein is taken from sources at IFP Advisors, LLC, doing business as IFP, IFP Securities, LLC, doing business as IFP, and its advisors believed to be reliable, but it is not guaranteed by us as to accuracy or completeness. This is for informational purposes only, and in no event should be construed as an offer to sell or solicitation of an offer to buy any securities or products. Please consult your tax and/or legal advisor before implementing any tax and/or legal-related strategies mentioned in this publication, as IFP does not provide tax and/or legal advice. Opinions expressed are subject to change without notice and do not take into account the particular investment objectives, financial situation, or needs of individual investors.